Hello everyone, this is Gene from the future. So the video that you're about to watch was recorded last night before Rekieta Law released part 3 of Vic Mignogna's deposition. So there are some facts I think that Vic's deposition, or at least the third part of Vic's deposition, has clarified, right, such as the supposed incident in the hotel room with Monica. So given in light of those facts, the facts might be slightly different. When I recorded the video, again, this was prior to Rekieta Law's part 3 of Vic Mignogna's deposition. Though I don't think the facts have changed so much that the video still isn't, or rather, I don't think that things change so much that anything in the video is, drastically altered or has to be changed because of the deposition. Just some minor stuff, mainly about Monica's allegation about Vic coming on to her and whatnot. So just keep that in mind again, that this video was recorded prior to Rekieta's video on part 3 of Vic's deposition coming out. But again, I don't think anything major has changed, and I think that the spirit of the video, which is again about why I believe one person in their account and why I don't believe the other person in their account, and what's missing and what's being exaggerated and whatnot, I think that part, my main thoughts, the spirit of the video, I think still applies. So I just wanted to, from the future, tell you that. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Just keep this little ramble in mind as you're listening to it, especially if I mention anything or talk about anything that may have been expanded upon due to part 3 of Vic's deposition. So that's it. Enjoy the video that was made last night. Thank you. See you later. Enjoy the vid. Bye. Hello everyone, this is Gene from NYC again, and I'm back with another video. I hope you're all doing well. As always, I would like to thank everyone who has watched, who has liked, who has left comments, who has subscribed. My subscriber count keeps steadily growing, and it's because of you all. So whether you're newly subscribed or you've been subscribed before I started making videos, whether this is your first video or your 100th, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hear my thoughts on whatever matter I decide to talk about. So this video is going to be my thoughts on the deposition, or rather it's a comparison, I should say, of the depositions of Monica Rial and Vic Mignogna. Right? Now, there's a few reasons why I'm focusing on those two depositions. One is because I have yet to fully listen to Ron Toye's deposition. Plus, I'm not really truly interested in Ron, but I haven't really had a chance to listen to his yet. Plus, the real two big players in this whole, some call it Animegate, some call it Weeb Wars, this whole legal action between Vic Mignogna and Funimation and Ron Toye and Jamie Marchi and Monica Rial, it's really based in allegations that Monica Rial has made against Vic. So if you're not aware, to be brief, Vic Mignogna is a well-known, beloved, respected voice actor in the anime dubbing community, and earlier this year, around late January, early February, there were allegations of him being sexually inappropriate with minors in particular, right? With he's popular with young girls, One, because he's very handsome for an older man, and two, because he tends to voice young boy characters. Some of his most famous roles are Edward Elric from Fullmetal Alchemist. Another one is Tamaki from Oiran High School Club, or whatever it's called. So he gets those type of, young shonen hero, or, young romantic hero type roles. And he's always been very popular with his female fan base, which tends to be young teenage girls. So he was accused of being inappropriate with these girls. Several news sites came out with articles that were quickly disproven. In fact, some of those news sites, such as Anime News Network, got in trouble for misappropriating stories and photos and not using using photos without the permission of the owners of those photos, right? So just taking photos, blanking out young girls' faces, and saying that these young girls had felt uncomfortable in their interactions with Vic, when that wasn't the case. There was at least one young girl who spoke out and said that I didn't give Anime News Network permission to use my pictures. They haven't spoken with me, and this is not what happened. So Anime News Network got caught in a lie really quick. But anyway, all these articles started coming out against Vic and accusing him of sexual impropriety of various sorts. What happened was this impacted his career. He was, despite the fact that none of these claims were founded really, he was dropped from Funimation. The first company to drop him was Rooster Teeth. Then he was dropped from Funimation after Funimation said that they did an investigation into claims against him, all of which has been very suspect from the beginning. And then anime conventions dropped him, and for a time he was a man without a country, as it were. And on top of that, there were many voice actors, in particular Monica Rial and Jamie Marchi, who accused him of sexual assault, right? Of inappropriate sexual contact and sexual assault. So Vic apologized for any unintended offense that he may have caused. He denied all the serious stuff, but he apologized for basically being a overly affectionate Italian man, and he apologized for any misunderstood intent or any unknowingly unwelcome interaction that he had with any fans or with anybody else that he never intended to make people feel uncomfortable. Despite Vic apologizing for the possibility of offending others, this continued to rage, and it's come to the point now where, to save his career, Vic has had to file a lawsuit to save his job, right? Well, not save his job really, because he was fired, but again, to save his good name and to save his career. So he's currently, we don't know how long this is going to go or how many rounds of litigation there will be, but he's currently suing Funimation, Monica Rial, her fiance Ron Toye, and Jamie Marchi. So Ron, Vic, and Monica have had depositions. They've done their depositions. Those depositions have been recorded. Nick Rekieta, who himself is an attorney, has gotten those videos, and he's made them available through his YouTube page to watch, and he's given commentary and so on and so forth. So I've seen all of Monica's deposition. I've seen a good chunk of Vic's. I haven't watched all of it. It's like 6 to 8 hours. I don't think I'll ever see all of it, but I've seen a good chunk of it, and I've seen all of Monica's. So what I wanted to do was to compare and contrast the two, in particular in one area, because there are a lot of differences, but I don't want to spend too long on this. I could go all day, but to be brief and to focus and be concise, I wanted to focus on one area. The area of trauma. And in particular, the aftermath of trauma. Now, in both depositions, both Vic and Monica describe a traumatic event. Vic describes the emotional fallout of having these, or rather I should say the emotional fallout from the trauma of these accusations being brought against him, and of course him being fired and losing his job, right, and being dropped from all of these conventions, and being accused in public by Monica and others of being a sexual predator, basically. And so that's the trauma that Vic describes. The trauma that Monica describes is an alleged event. She alleges that back in 2007, that Vic had forced himself on her sexually. That they were in a room watching a fan film, that he grabbed her suddenly by the arm, started kissing her, tried to move her on to the bed. Again, this is alleged. This is what she's claiming. I don't think any other proof other than her claim has been provided. So she's claiming that Vic did this, and this is her traumatizing event. On top of that, she stated that she had been raped as a teenager, and that experience sort of informed her response, right, in what to do when she alleges that Vic kissed her, and again was sexually, I guess you could say, again, forcing himself on her, right, sexually aggressive toward her. So let's establish a baseline, right? Let's establish some common, I don't want to say themes, but I guess just some common symptoms. Maybe symptoms is a good term, right? Common symptoms that are experienced from fallout from trauma, right? Whether it be a sexual trauma, whether it be a non-sexual trauma. Here, to my knowledge, and I'll provide links, are some of the common symptoms of emotional, physiological, physical fallout from trauma. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. It's just some of the things, to my knowledge, some of the emotional and physical fallout from enduring a traumatic event. They are depression and all the symptoms depression has. Your work, going to school becomes difficult. Being unable to concentrate, your grades or your quality of your work falling, your romantic relationships suffering from a lack of intimacy, both emotional intimacy, general intimacy, and sexual intimacy, right? Your sex life taking a hit, being nervous, being jittery in certain areas, right? Being jumpy, being defensive, your professional relationships, your personal relationships, your familial relationships, all, again, taking a hit, right? Being emotionally distant, engaging in self-destructive behavior such as overeating or undereating, or drug abuse, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, risky sex practices, right? The gamut goes on and on and on. But these are some of the common symptoms of the emotional fallout from experiencing a traumatic event, right? So in Monica's deposition, right, she is deposed by a woman, I believe her name is Carrie Christie. So I'm probably going to refer to her as Miss Christie in this. So Miss Christie is deposing Monica. And eventually they come to the point where she asks Monica to explain what happened in this alleged event where, again, allegedly Vic forced himself onto her. Monica explains that basically she, Vic, and another man were supposed to go out to a sort of after-con dinner that the other man had to go leave and do something briefly, that she and Vic told the man that they would be in Vic's room. Vic, according to Monica, Vic, invited her to his room to watch a fan film of some sort. She alleges that while they were watching the fan film, that Vic suddenly grabbed her, kissed her, tried to lay her on the bed, and that it was during this that she started flashing back to when she was allegedly raped as a teenager, and basically that's sort of flashback, and that's why she sort of, at least from what she says, that she went along with Vic, with what was happening, right? She didn't resist him, and that the only thing that stopped it was this man that they were supposed to have a meal with, like knocking on the door or coming through the door, right? And Vic, you know, pulling himself off of her, right? So this is Monica's story. Now, it's important to understand that, first of all, Monica, although if you listen to her, she sounds like she's in tears, but if you actually watch the video and you see her face, you see that she never cries, her eyes never tear up, she never gets especially choked up, she never requests a moment to compose herself. I have some professional experience with this in that I, on occasion in my line of work, I work in compliance, and part of compliance where I work is to do investigations into allegations of sexual misconduct, which would include sexual assault. So I've, when called upon, have sat in interviews where the person is alleging that they've been sexually assaulted. So I've seen this. I've seen how people respond when they are recalling a traumatic event, and at least from what I've seen, they don't sit there stone-faced, right? In my experience, they cry, even when they're trying not to cry, right? I've seen a few people, you know, say that they aren't going to cry or deny that they're crying, even as the tears are coming down their face, right? I've looked into the eyes of these people, and I've seen that the best way I can describe it is just that they're not there in the room with you anymore. Like, their body's physically there, but you could just look in their eyes, and you can tell that emotionally and mentally they are not there in the present anymore. They are flashing back to this traumatic event, right? I've heard people get choked up. I've had people ask to leave the room to compose themselves, right? So I've seen this. I do have a touchstone and a basis for my comparison, I guess you could say. So again, Monica and I watched this portion of her deposition twice. Monica doesn't do any of those things. Again, for a woman claiming that she experienced two traumas at the same time, basically, she is remarkably composed even as she recalls these. But anyway, back to the point. Something that I noticed when I was listening to her explain the situation the second time was that she didn't describe any emotional fallout from the event. With the exception of a throwaway line about having nightmares, Monica never says how her life changed or how she personally suffered or how her relationship suffered after what she alleges happened. She doesn't say that her work suffered. She doesn't say that she experienced depression and the various symptoms that go with that. She doesn't say that her romantic relationship at the time, and she acknowledges in a different part of the deposition that she was seeing someone at the time this allegedly happened. So she was in a romantic relationship with a man, and yet, again, she doesn't say anything about this alleged event and the fallout from it affecting her love life or her sex life or her intimacy with her boyfriend at the time. She doesn't say anything about how it affected her family life, how it affected how she related to people. She doesn't display any sort of, again, fallout or aftermath from this. And at least in my experience, from what I know of, almost everyone who goes through a traumatic experience is changed, right? They go through some sort of fallout. Maybe it's not everything, right? You know, some people, for example, they start drinking. Other people may start overeating. Some people may start undereating, right? People go through it the same way, but nearly everybody who experiences a trauma, right, has an emotional aftermath from it that impacts the rest of their life. It impacts their sense of self. It impacts their family life, their professional life, their romantic life, their sexual life. Every part of their life is forever changed by this event. Monica does not display any of that or talk about any of that, right? She tells this story about being in, again, it's an allegation she's making, but she tells this story about basically almost being sexually assaulted and only being saved by good timing and dumb luck. But again, she never talks about the after, right? The morning after, the week after, the month after, the year after. And this is an especially traumatic event she's describing. Again, because she's talking about how he's, again, allegedly doing this to her in the present, and she's flashing back to when this allegedly happened to her in the past. So it's pretty much experiencing two traumas at the same time. Yet again, she never talks about the fallout from this. And one would think that a deposition where you get to tell your side of the story at length would be the time to tell your story, to tell your side, to explain what this event did to you and how it impacted your life. So that's Monica, right? So to recap and establish, she did not seem to undergo any sort of major aftermath emotionally after, again, allegedly being sexually assaulted. No aftermath, no major aftermath or change to her life. Now let's focus on Vic. Vic, in his deposition, there's a point where he is asked by, I believe it's Ron and Monica's attorney. I think his name is J. Sean Lemoyne or something to that effect. And he asks Vic basically about, what happened, why he got fired, and then, again, what happened to him afterward. How did he feel afterward? Right? How has this impacted him emotionally? And Vic explains that in the aftermath, ever since this happened, that he fell into a depression, that he stopped eating, that he lost weight, that he had a period where he felt terribly unmotivated, that he just wanted to be left alone. Right? He talks about how, this was such an emotional blow to his sense of self, to his sense of if he was a good judge of character, he now no longer, according to his own statements, he now no longer considers himself to be a good judge of character. He talks about how he's been in counseling and how he's now taking at least 2 medicines, one for blood pressure, one for anti-depression, as a result of this event, as a result of these accusations and everything that it has cost him, right? And again, this is the difference. Vic is talking about how this has impacted his life. He's talked about how he no longer trusts his ability to evaluate a person's character. He says that, I used to think I was a good judge of character, I guess I'm not now. He talks about how his fan interactions are different, that he has a handler now at cons, right? And that he doesn't hug or kiss his fans anymore. He acknowledges that the fans at times hug him, but he explains that if a fan wants a hug, that he will tell his handler, see this person who is an adult, right? He specified that he no longer hugs underage people, right? So he's no longer hugging minors, he's no longer hugging kids. So it's only adults now. And he mentions that he has a handler, and when an adult wants a hug, right, they want to hug him, that he will, you know, alert his handler and make sure that the handler understands and acknowledges that this person has asked me for a hug. And that's when he will then allow the person to hug him. Right? So, again, we are seeing how these allegations have impacted Vic's life and have changed it. He's now questioned, he's now, I guess you could say in a way, doubted himself, right? He doubts his ability to evaluate character. This has changed how he interacts with his fans. Again, he talks about having fallen into a depression, being on an antidepressant, being in counseling. Again, there's a period, there's a point where his attorney, not his attorney, the attorney deposing him, Jay Sean, asked him about how all this has impacted his business, right? His cash flow. And Vic explains that there were a few cons that he was offered to go to, right in the aftermath when everybody was dropping him, but that he was so unmotivated that he did not follow up, and he didn't go to those cons. See, this is what I mean. Vic is talking about it, and he's displaying and sharing the aftermath of what this trauma, in this case with him, these so far to be, for the most part, baseless allegations, and having his reputation smeared, and having been fired and being accused of these very, you know, heinous things, what that's done to him. It impacted him. It has changed him. Again, it caused states such as his depression that did not exist in him previously. It has changed the way he interacts with fans. So we're seeing here that yes, there was an aftermath. He has been changed. He is suffering. There are some signs of those, you know, emotional aftermath and after effects of a traumatic event. So you have Vic, like, talking about and displaying at least some of those, again, symptoms of the emotional fallout from a traumatic event. And then you have Monica, who displays none, with the exception of a throwaway line about having nightmares. She displays absolutely none. She does not share or divulge any details about how nearly being sexually assaulted and flashing back to a sexual assault. She doesn't talk about how that impacted her life at any point at all. And I watched her entire deposition, and Miss Christie, the attorney who was deposing her, goes back to this event and asks her various questions about it several times, and yet Monica never says that it hurt her sex life, that it hurt her love life, that it hurt her work, that she started you know, indulging in self-destructive behaviors, that she felt depression. Nothing like that. There's no fallout. And this is one of the many reasons why I seriously doubt Monica's story. Because again, it just doesn't make sense, given my professional knowledge and experience, given just what I've seen people go through in life. And again, you know, just look up stuff on the internet, or you see, you know, documentaries on TV. Monica's behavior or lack thereof doesn't add up. Again, her lack of emotional trauma or fallout from a traumatic event is very telling. And when you compare it to Vic's, again, who has changed his behavior, who has changed his outlook, who has showed some level of emotional suffering, for me, him showing that he has suffered, and Monica showing that she hasn't, in my opinion, or at least not divulging in what way she has suffered, to me, for me, I should say, it just makes me believe Vic more. Because again, the preponderance of the evidence, I'm looking at this as objectively as I can. The preponderance of the evidence being their own testimony, the objective standard being common symptoms of trauma and my own my own professional knowledge and experience, the preponderance of the evidence leans toward Vic in this instance for me. Again, Monica's story just has too many holes and it's too fishy for me. And again, it's lacking those important details that would have a ring of truth to it, whereas Vic's story does have that. Another reason why I doubt Monica's accounts is because when Monica talks about what Vic allegedly did to her, whether it's this sexual assault, whether it's him allegedly calling her certain pet names, or whether it's him allegedly kissing her on the cheek forcibly or grabbing her hair forcibly, what I notice is that, and again, this is just to me, that to me, Monica is not describing a person who is sexually inappropriate and might possibly be a sexual predator. To me, when she tells tells her side of the story, when she gives her accounts of what she has alleged against Vic, it sounds to me more like a caricature, like she's describing a cartoon villain. And I'm very literal when I say that she's describing a cartoon villain. To me, when she says these things and she describes this behavior, I'm reminded of Judge Frollo from Disney's version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's who I think of. A cartoon villain, a caricature of a sexual predator, not an actual sexual predator. So it is for these reasons that I believe Vic, and I stand with Vic, and I don't believe Monica. There are many reasons. I've done several videos on this, but I just wanted to address this and just compare the two, and again state another reason why I fall on the Vic side and not on the Monica side. And for me anyway, it has nothing to do with the work of either person. Right? It isn't about me being a fan of Vic's work or a fan of Monica's work or anything like that. I'm evaluating the information as best I know it, as best I can. I'm comparing it against what is common knowledge and what I know according to my professional knowledge and experiences. And when I do that, when I look at it objectively, and again I make these objective comparisons, I find that the scale of justice, I guess you could say, right, leans on Vic, right? Vic's behaviors or his descriptions, right, they ring to me to be more truthful and more likely than Monica's. So that's it for the video. I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. Please let me know in the comments below what you think, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, everybody. Well, have a good night, by the way, I should say. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.